trick was done before by the first speakers, but I'd like to ask everyone to get up for a couple of seconds. We've been sitting for quite a while. I was glad to hear that Philip Morris is doing away with smoking. We won't have that problem to worry about. The new smoking is sitting down too much. Actually, in my day job, I work on a circulation device to improve essentially, to stave off the effects of immobility that we all have today. And while I have you up, to have another purpose for that, I don't think the organizers got their fair share of an applause, of a thank you for putting this together. I mean, these guys are two guys and a girl and a dog somewhere in Europe, and they show up in Silicon Valley, and we have 3 days full of amazing stuff, 300-400 people showing up. So how about a big round of applause for Hans and the rest of the team? Well deserved. Well deserved. Even though you put me as like the fourth speaker and everybody's already said all the good stuff. So all I got left to say is intrapreneurship is bullshit? Is that my talk? It's not. All right, you guys could have a seat or continue to stand up. Hopefully the clicker works. So for my thank yous, we've thanked the organizers. It's been great working with you guys. And then for my talk, Hans asked me to do a talk, and I was like, what should I talk about? He's like, hey, when you're desperate, a list always works. 5 trends in entrepreneurship, so that's my talk. And like, who am I to come up with all these trends? I thank you for putting me down as an expert. As Karen was saying, I'm still learning. I wouldn't call myself an expert. I guess the term I prefer the term idiot savant of entrepreneurship without the savant part. So I used a good set of friends that I have out there to help crowdsource the material here. I called all these people, most of them, and say, what do you think is trending in entrepreneurship? Of course, I filtered through some of my experiences, some of the mentorship I've received from a lot of those true experts on the right. And hopefully you like the talk. And if you don't like it, if you have complaints, you can blame them. Many of you are in the audience, so thanks again. We'll see each other in a second. A little bit about me. Don't want to bore you with my resume details. It's not the point. It's just to show you that I'm kind of old, so I divided up my resume in the industrial age and the imagination age. It kind of looks better. It's not a long list. As far as, let me jump over to Qualcomm. So about 12 years ago or so, I guess I started down this route of corporate entrepreneurship. First, it wasn't entrepreneurial at all. It was just typical top-down business development stuff in a large corporation. So I was a single app. I was working on mobile healthcare, mobile payments, and didn't like it so much. And I don't know what happened. About 10 years ago, something hit me over the head, and I decided to turn my career into true entrepreneurship. Decided to turn myself into a platform for employees who wanted to act out their entrepreneurial drive. And what I try to be introspective and answer for myself, well, why did I do such a crazy, stupid thing when everything was going perfectly okay up to that point? So if you could relate. And I thought back actually to the stuff I did in the industrial age as an industrial engineer. And the goal of those kinds of businesses you've heard today was to reach perfection. It was non-variance, and the stuff on the right is about variance. And to reach perfection, I think the big idea there was continuous improvement. And that to me wasn't surprising, why continuous improvement was fundamental to achieving perfection. I think what was really surprising to me was that we invited everyone to be part of how continuous improvement gets done. It was very egalitarian in that sense. Who was I as an industrial engineer to go down to the assembly line and tell people how to best do their job? And so I became a platform for change and not somebody that would dictate change. I thought employees really knew what was going on a lot better than an industrial engineer with a clipboard and a stopwatch could do. I wrote an article retailing the shop floor. So when I switched over to the imagination age, I thought that wasn't going to be an issue anymore, right? We're trying to achieve variance. Creativity is welcome everywhere. Why even worry about that issue? And actually, I was pretty distraught at what I found. I found that the world of innovation was actually in my mind, very elitist, not very entrepreneurial at all. And so I decided to do something about it and turn my career into helping others become more entrepreneurial within large companies. Now, this did have an effect. and I would just say that the fundamental thing there for me is that I think we have a moral right to be creative, and no one could take that away from us, not even a corporation. And corporations, if you turn it the other way, don't have the moral right to take creativity away from us, willingly, mostly unwillingly, but either way, it's something that's not going to fly. So again, everything was, let me show you, this have an effect on me, good or bad? Well, let me just show you a picture's worth 1,000 words. So here's a picture of me while I was sort of following the straight line, your typical corporate sycophant. Everything was okay, nothing too crazy, on my way to success. And here's a real-life picture of me after I found this entrepreneurship stuff. So I became obstreperous anarchist. I'm sure you could relate that, once you do this entrepreneurship stuff, you become the red-haired stepchild of the place, right? And, well, I could tell you that there's certainly a right and a wrong way to do it, and hopefully I could teach you some things about how to not repeat the same mistakes and end up like this. Now, this is my framing device for the rest of the talk. The hint here is that this isn't just me. This is, when I look out, I see this. I see a bunch of red-haired stepchildren. But I think I could help you in how to do a better job. So here's the 5 things, I think, trends you need to know how to become, and I don't want to be presumptuous, a more effective entrepreneur. We're dealing with a very sophisticated crowd. I realize that. And I think you can read them off there. I think the number 1's the most important. So if you're going to fall asleep, and you just bear through the first one, and you'll be okay for the rest. So let me start with transformation. So here's life at every large company today. I know some of you are from South America, Europe, Asia, US, et cetera. Starts off at the top. We have a visionary CEO. And he or she is a former red-haired stepchild herself, swashbuckler. They usually don't have the hat, but they have the same exact attitude that you have. The CEO of a large company is not the big bad wolf in the story. Does anybody think that, by the way? Does anybody think that the problem is the CEO is a big bad wolf? They're not, all the CEOs I've met are not, they want to live vicariously through the kinds of things that you're doing. And then let me introduce you to the bottom of the pyramid that I love helping out so much. So they're the characters. Hopefully you could relate to some of these. Let's start off on the right side here, R&D Leia. Anybody in R&D? Star Trek or Star Wars? Which is it? Star Trek, exactly. Star Trek's more popular. I was at Qualcomm, a very R&D-centric company. I'm from San Diego. I didn't need to go to Comic-Con. I would just walk down the R&D halls and just meet all kinds of interesting people with stuff on their face and helmets and, third-dimensional virtual reality stuff. It was good stuff. The second person there from right to left, that's your familiar entrepreneurial Pat. I'll skip over him or her for a second. In the middle, we have Engaged Jill. This is the person that I just hate. They're in the core business. They're doing so well. They're going to get promoted. Life is great, right? We all have those, right? That they're not bothered by, I got to think out of the box. I got to do something. Things are seemingly okay. Then there's the working from home Yahoo. Anybody here from Yahoo? A little quip on Marissa Mayer. So I had to represents the sort of checked out, resting, investing. And then of course, there's the millennial, who you can see by the look on his face, is still getting over the shock of working in the drudgery of corporate life. And so what happens? The CEO comes to a conference like this. Hans gives her a call. Oh, yeah, gotta. Oh, by the way, and da-da-da-da. Unfortunately, we've got evil managers there in the middle. They haven't gone away yet. So the CEO says, OK, hey, innovate, please. Then some time goes by. We hear crickets. And so, OK, let's fast forward a little bit. The managers are standing on guard. They're like, oh, she's serious. People are going to these conferences. They're going to come back with stuff. So she's like, I said innovate, a little more forcibly. And so one of these at the bottom here is thinking it, right? R&D Lay is like, that sounds like I have to deliver short-term results. I'm good. I'm working 20 years out. Flying cars. Think flying cars. I'm OK. Engage Jill. Again, I have a real job. Leave me alone. Working from home. Why do you think I'm working from home? And the millennial is like, these people just don't get it, right? So lo and behold, it's poor little entrepreneur Pat tries it. And this is, I got to make this short. In the story, he gets punished. It's pretty depressing. Oh, and if I finish on time, I have another cartoon where life is better. But in the interest of time, transformation is, I think, the thing we all have to worry about. We're still not there. The entrepreneurial system still isn't good enough to people, to me. We do see a lot of programs, but with a lot of what I call kick the can down the road kind of stuff, not really thought through how it really moves the needle, as somebody said today. By the way, Brent, you stole that good name, Move the Needle. That's really good. And you're definitely punished. Corporations certainly know how to do that. But what bothers me why we get punished, it's like considered desertion by managers. And of course, we know this, we can't have this, right? That's why we're here, and we're going to rally in the streets afterwards, right? That's why we're all going out tomorrow. Intrapreneurs, I'm on your side. You're not deserters. You're conscientious objectors. Okay? This should be encouraged. And I think we have started transformation. I think we finally realized that it starts with culture, that culture trumps everything else. That mindset's important. And that the cultural revolution is simply about starting with people, not starting by demanding innovations, not starting by demanding the innovation program of the month. Let me move on to my second trend that we collectively noticed, evidence-based. So transformation, quote unquote, this time it's for real, it needs a common language. And I think this common language is the language of evidence-based. I've often found myself in conversations where people are arguing about which of the innovation methods they've learned is better than the other. And I think it was you, Jean-Claude in the audience, where's Jean-Claude, that just really distilled this down for me pretty well, that ultimately they're about one fundamental thing. All of these methods are about becoming more evidence-based versus tradition. Evidence-based is inspired by evidence-based medicine. And that is a combination of research findings with judgment. And some of the evidence, some of the research findings also come from theory. Theory doesn't get thrown out as long as that theory was based on evidence, but usually you have to apply some situational analysis and decide for that particular instance of what to do. It is a mix of art and science, if you will, but it isn't, you can't go overboard. Innovation is not going to become randomized control trials for every single decision. As somebody said earlier, we'd never get anywhere. It's just not practical. These tools are fundamentally, these are tools. And the tools are to do one thing and one thing only, help us make better decisions so we can move forward. And decisions about what's best for the customer, decisions about what's best for the company, not decisions about what's best for the technology, which is what we used to do in the past. And these decisions, and the reason it's important to have a common language, get done between yourselves as the entrepreneurs and your sponsors. And it is this, now we could have a dialogue and we could base this dialogue on evidence versus the most important person in the room or just analysis paralysis or winging it, et cetera. This really gives us something to hold on to, and it is cultural. And so there's no point obsessing about a particular method. I'll get approached by groupies of one particular method trying to convince me theirs is better than the other as though somebody's giving out black belts. We did that with Six Sigma. We've got to stop doing that. It's not about getting a black belt. As a matter of fact, it's about mixed martial arts. It's about surviving in a street fight, not a form contest of how well you know a particular method. So we got to get over these method wars. And I think the companies that are on the forefront have gotten this. They're out there mixing and matching the best of each method. They understand that there's an innovation continuum, and some things are better openers, some things are better closers, some things are better in the middle. And ultimately, they make it into their own, turn that into a language, and they begin transformation with, I think, this substance in mind. Number 3, advantage networks. So I want to oversimplify the world of business since we know it. First era business is a simple era. I worked in that era. I worked for both an oil company and a car company, so we put pipes in the ground and pillaged the earth, and we bent metal, and all pretty simple stuff. All you really had to learn is how to leverage assets and learn how to do products. And then we were shellacked over the head by IT and the internet, and in come all these companies you've heard about today from Silicon Valley that approach things horizontally and provided platforms and taught us the hard way, those of us started out in the old world, that a good business model trumps a good product any day. And you had to start learning some things such that were different from just linear product development. So, and the most important one there is, I think, design and user experience. And then I think we're actually on the threshold of getting into another era, which is I'd call the complex era. And so things are not going to be either just hard or soft. They're going to be mushy. They're going to be intertwined. There's going to be a lot of cross-industry contamination. And this changes things. And companies who don't sort of pay attention now forever hold their peace. They're going to go into a museum. It's going to be the apocalypse if you don't start moving and at least get some of the things here in the middle. It's probably not too late. So some of the new things we'll have to learn. First of all, Steve Blank's right. We have to learn to talk to customers, but in this new era, we have to learn how to talk to customers at scale. That's probably going to involve some type of AI. We're going to finally learn that strategy is back. Strategy is back, and it's not going to be control is the basis of strategy. You're going to have to learn how to share. And by the way, this whole control thing, dominant platforms, which still happen in phase 2, it's going away. And it is about necessarily being dominant. It's about being pervasive and being part of that, the fabric of the network. And those things, control, et cetera, that isn't inspiring to the millennial that you hired, and it isn't inspiring to your customers that are becoming more and more the millennials. You're going to get that to get ahead. You're going to have to collaborate. You're going to have to network. And I think the big idea there is that data becomes the real currency of networking. If you don't have data, at some point people are going to wonder, it's like, why are you here in the room? Why are we collaborating? You have nothing to exchange with us. And so I think that's going to become important. And we've certainly seen that in the auto industry. I come from the auto industry. It's become much more complex than it used to be. We don't know who's your friend, who's your foe. And we see alliances that I think would have been unimaginable a few years ago. We see the HERE alliance. These German car companies got together, got this location-based car-to-car platform for themselves from Nokia to compete against the likes of Google. And that's just unthinkable that they would partner like that and share data and have each other's cars share data so that they can get ahead in this new world. That is just a small example. And I think it's happening everywhere. So whether you're making cigarettes or cereal or shoes, clothes, you should pay attention. Of course, there's some things more on the forefront. And I think this advantage networking thing also plays over to how we innovate. We're going to innovate as part of a network more and more. So the bumper sticker for that, I think in Open Innovation 1.0, the world is your lab. That has a hierarchical tone to it. In the advantage network era, in the complex era, the world is a collab. And I think you're going to have to it's hard to guess at what the next big thing is. Things are going to be a lot more fluid. I think you have to put platforms out there to have you and your customers co-create things. And so you will need platforms, just like Open Innovation 1.0 needed these intermediaries. I think Open Innovation 2.0 needs platforms, definitely to connect better to customers. And I think a big trend is to connect to startups. Easier said than done. Those are not easy issues, but I think it's gradually happening. You start to see startup studios, great way to connect and try out different things with startups. You're starting to see this role of an EIR. I'm currently an EIR for my client working on this smart compression device. EIRs aren't just for VC companies anymore. And then here's a term I made up in terms of an intrapreneur out of residence. I think you will work on new cool stuff, perhaps also with startups, and you will be part of a team that's a mix of a corporate and a startup team. And I hope that the evil managers don't turn this intrapreneur out of residence into a euphemism for you got fired and say, no, you didn't get fired. You just got put out of residence for a while. I think we're getting into, those three waves were about, first wave, the dinosaur era, we knew everything. The second wave, we kind of knew what we didn't know. So we could kind of go figure out what the gaps were. And this third era, we don't know what we don't know. And I think things are moving really fast. And Karen was saying that I totally agree with everything she said. and things are moving really fast, and you don't know where things are coming from. So you have to have a system to learn what you don't know. Number 4, so if Gifford Pinchot can make up a couple of terms like intrapreneurship. By the way, the one thing I hate about intrapreneurship is when you type it in, right, spell check, just, don't you hate that? Can somebody fix that? Can we get that guy from Silicon Valley to just fix that? That's the one thing I hate. But if somebody can make up names, so can I, right? So first term here, intra-VCing. I think all of these conferences are sort of like speaking to the sellers. Here's how you become a better seller. Here's how you do more entrepreneurship. Here's a method you got to learn. Here's how you get rid of the antibodies. Here's how you do. And that's great. It's where it starts. It's our revolution. But at some point, somebody's got to start setting up the buying system to make this all go more smoothly. You know, Silicon Valley has both a seller and a buying system. And so I think we need that, more of that in large companies. And it's about learning how to do staged risk in large companies. So I think you'll see distributed ways to attribute capital and support inside large companies, depending on the stage of the idea and these things. And I think the big thing here is that these things will be stringed together. Things will know of each other. Things are synergistic to each other instead of a bunch of isolated silos, once again, kicking the can down the road, which was what I see today. So you will see startup schools. You will see challenge-based competitions. This is the kind of stuff I did at Qualcomm 10 years ago. You might start to see some managers have some instead of just being evil, actually have some money and be able to offer you support to move some ideas ahead. You might see employee crowdfunding. That one still haven't seen strong evidence that it's trending, but people are thinking about it. The fourth one, I think you're going to start to see funding boards and people really starting to understand how to have a dialogue and make decisions throughout the company on how to test things and move them forward into market validation. And eventually, I think the top-down kind of budgets, I think they'll be allocated to innovation instead of just giving it back to shareholders. And you're starting to see that. The problem is they haven't been tied into the farm system. They really seem to don't care what's coming up from the bottom. It's all sort of for the top to think about. And again, that's what I fight against. I think we're all in the same boat together. We should string these things as one system. Finally, another meta point here, extrapreneuring. From the things I've been telling you, the job of an entrepreneur is becoming more complex, not simpler. You're going to have to get along with the folks in the core business. You're going to have to get along with folks outside the company. You can't just work on your idea and leave me alone kind of attitude. You have to be part of the transformation. You have to be part of connecting to the outside world. Everyone, has this alter ego that thinks like you do, and you have to appeal to that anarchist, obstreperous alter ego. Even you can even get the millennials to come along with you at some point. In summary, these are the 5 trends that surfaced in our research. I think bottom line for entrepreneurs, now's your time. It's time to act. I think the only scarcity, land, capital, even information isn't scarce anymore. I think what's scarce is this ability to act in the face of high uncertainty, and that's what you bring to the table. And I think for executives, at the end of the day, they have to understand that and allow for that environment to happen ever more so. I do want to show one more slide. I know you're trying to gain time with me like the Oscars. Keep calm. Carry on. That's my email if you want to contact me afterwards. And let me just, since I have a minute left, let me show you more of a, I guess, an inspiring vision of the future. So this is the future. We're going to get rid of the evil managers. Somebody said that earlier. Stole my idea. I don't know how we do it. Just get it done. Promote them or something. And of course, speaking of promotions, yep, it's that millennial's going to get promoted. Face it. But he's going to have cash. CEO's going to have cash. It's like, come on, let's have it. So Entrepreneur Pat says, let's have a flying car for my dog. And it doesn't quite work out, but he's back where he was. Doesn't end up in the doghouse forever. And I think it's a much better vision of the future. So I thank you very much. Hope to connect with you during the rest of the conference. Thanks.